I'm continuing with the November 2022, paper 2, geography paper 2. This is the infographic that I have. Refer to the infographic below. On the Central Business District of Johannesburg as a land use zone. Okay. Land use is what the land is used for. When you talk about what you call the zones, when you talk about the zones, there's a difference between land use and when we incorporate the aspect of zone. I want to just make it clear so that at least when you talk about the land use, we simply refers to what the land is currently being used for. But when you talk about the zoning now, is to regulate what kind of users are permitted for specific parcels of land. That's basically what it's all about. But here the main focus here, since they've incorporated land use zone, this aspect of zone was in from our ATP. You find that we define land use, we also define what we call zoning, but it's this more or less the same thing. But when you include the aspect of zoning, we are saying there is a regulation that is taking place. There's land that is used only for commercial purposes, your CBD. There's land that is used only for industry. There's land that is used specifically maybe for residential area where people live. Okay, that's basically what you're talking about. So that's what should come to your mind. Plus also looking at this, you can see there's a Central Business District, which is the CBD, transition zone, which is normally at the outskirts of the CBD, high income residential, obviously it's also known as the high class. Okay, then you've got outlying business district. Okay, so you can see from this diagram, what can you deduce from this diagram is you can see in terms of the height of the buildings, as you are within the CBD, the height of the buildings you can see is tall. We have got skyscrapers, but the height decreases as you move away from the CBD. You can see that it actually decreases as you move away from the CBD. Why is it that? Because of, if you can check here, because of the land value. The land value within the CBD is very expensive. That's why you see they do not expand horizontally, but they expand vertically, because the land value within the CBD is very expensive. It's expensive to expand horizontally, but it's cheaper to do it vertically. That's why in terms of the height of the buildings from low to high, okay, in terms of land value, but land, you can see that as you go towards the outskirts of your CBD or surrounding areas, the height of the building also decreases. So A is your CBD, then B is your transition zone, high income area, then you've got outlying business district. So that's what this is all about. The CBD of Johannesburg has experienced decline in economic investment. Okay, the CBD have experienced decline in economic investment over the past 20 years. So what we expect within the CBD, obviously we expect it to be the most busiest part of the town. This is the most busiest part of the town where all the business transactions are taking place. But when we are saying now there is a decline, which means there is a problem that needs to be resolved so that we do not have such a situation. This has been due to the problems such as crime, which means within the CBD there's crime, there's what else is there? There's inefficient public transport, decay, decrease in accessibility, etc. These factors force business to relocate, which means the reason why we have got a decline in economic investment is because of these challenges, which has caused business to relocate, which is decentralizing, to the outlying business district, which means they are moving away from the CBD and they are relocating in the outlying business district. Why? Because of course the land values here are not as expensive as within the CBD, so they are moving. Because remember, when a business is being run, it's a profit motive. The moment you're not making profit, it's not viable. You need to operate in an area where you can generate revenue as compared to the money that you are going to spend, giving rise to commercial decentralization. We are now saying now these businesses are being moved now from the CBD, they are going towards the outskirts, or what we call the outlying business district. Okay. In spite of this, the land values remain high in the CBD. The transition zone is generally dilapidated, but maintain high land values. Why? Because it's still within the CBD. It's only that some of the buildings are not maintained because the owners, maybe they're waiting for that time that the municipality can buy the land from them. They want to maximize on that. So that is what is happening. So this is telling you now there's been commercial decentralization. Why? Because of the challenges that are within the CBD. So most of the characteristics of the CBD, let me just outline them before we move on to the question. It is the most accessible part of the town. Most roads converge there, which means that's why when we talk about some of the challenges, you say there's a traffic congestion, because it is the busiest part of the town, most accessible. Most roads converge here, okay? It has got highest paid land values. That's why you see from here, which means the land value within the CBD is very high. It's very expensive actually. So it's the commercial heart of the town. You'll find things such as banks, you find things such as financial institution, retail shop, professional services, and administrative services. Okay, what are some of the characteristics? Most intensive land use, okay, in terms of the density of the buildings. You can see it is because land there is very expensive. Highest buildings called the skyscrapers, that's what we have within the CBD. That's why even when I was talking about the height of the buildings, it's high within the CBD, but as you move away from the CBD, you find that it actually decreases in terms also of the land value, which is what this graph is talking about. Then some of the functions, okay, highest order functions dominate this area: retail shops, financial institution, professional services, administrative services, low order functions, the cafe, we're talking about saloons, chemistry, and so on and so on. Some of the problems that you actually encounter within the CBD, like what I've been reading now from the extract, we are talking about this more transport problem like congestion, the parking space is limited, the business decentralization, which means most of the business, they are moving away from the CBD. It is because of the challenges that are being faced. There's noise pollution, safety issues, the crime is in the increase. So we are now saying now, that is why mostly why there is what we call commercial decentralization, which means they are moving away from the CBD because of inefficient public transport, because of crime, because of decay, some of the dilapidated buildings, okay, because of the they are relocating to the outlying businesses. That's why what is happening. Okay, let's move on to the first question. State two characteristics of the Johannesburg CBD that is evident on the photograph. What is evident on the photograph? Okay, 1.4.1. What can we see? We can see tall buildings. Guys, when you have a question like this, guys, we have to collect marks. We have got tall buildings. This is a tall buildings. You can see what else do we have? High density of buildings, the number of buildings per unit area, okay, per square kilometer, per square meter, okay. You can see that there is higher density of buildings. Why? The land values are high. They cannot expand vertically, but they are doing it vertical, okay. They're looking at the number of buildings per square meter, okay. Higher density of buildings, that's what we can see there. You can see the buildings that we have there. High density of buildings. What do you have? You've got tall buildings. So already you've collected your 2 marks. Which land use zone has the highest land value as indicated in the graph? Obviously, that is your central business district. We are using this now. Guys, collect marks, guys. Collect marks, guys. Okay, so we are saying now, in terms of land value, here, what do we have at A? That is your central business district, which is your CBD. Okay, how does the land value in question 1.4.2 influence the building density of the CBD? 1.4.3, it actually increases. It actually increases because the land value there is very high. So there is a high, this is why we call land, the building density in the CBD is high. It actually increases. Then you get your 2 marks, guys. It increases. You can see there, okay, because of the land values within the CBD. Then 1.4.4, why is the transition zone generally dilapidated despite high land values? Okay, 1.4.4. We are now saying that it is the future expansion of the CBD. Okay, at some point as the CBD will be expanding, obviously they are going to buy some of the houses from the people that are that have got these houses within or close to the CBD. So this is the future expansion of the CBD. That's why it is still has high land values because it's within what you call the transition. So it's still within the CBD, close to the CBD. So when the CBD is going to expand, obviously it's going to take over the part of the transition zone. That's basically what we are talking about. So it is the future expansion of the CBD. Then homeowners, we can still get higher prices for dilapidated buildings. At some point, they'll sell them when the seat or the CBD is about to expand. Okay. Then what else? Then also landlords in the transition zone are hesitant to renovate. They don't want to renovate. because they know that at some point the CBD will expand. So they want to rather save cost and maximize on selling their properties, knowing that the land values within the CBDs are very high. That's basically what we are talking about. Then 1.4.5, 1.4.5, it reads, why is the outlying business district attractive for the relocation of business? Okay, outlying, I think I need to say something about the outlying business districts. This occur at important road intersections or areas with a high population concentration. High order and low order goods can be found in these areas. That's what we can find in this outlying business district. We are talking about your malls in general. We are talking about your malls, okay? Of course. Why is the outlying business district attractive for the relocation of businesses? 1.45. Why are some of the businesses relocating to the malls? That's basically what we are talking about, just to simplify it. Okay. Why is, which means you give reasons. You have to give reason. So some of the reason could be greater accessibility, because obviously these outlying business districts, you find them at road intersections, which means they are accessible where they are. Okay. Then they are located in high population density areas. Obviously, they're close to the residential area, located in high population density. Obviously, there's already an existing market, which means business are likely to thrive there. They are located in high population density areas, along main roads with and constant flow of traffic. Okay, that's another reason. Again, you can also talk about lower land values. Remember, in the CBD, the land values, like we have said here, they are very high. But as you go on the outskirts here, on the outline, you find that the land values are less, which makes it more attractive. Lower rental costs. You can talk about modern new buildings, more parking space, less pollution, less crime. So these are some of the things that you can actually talk about. Outlaying, think about our malls. Why are they attractive? Why are business relocating there? You understand? Less pollution, less crime, more parking space. I think you've been to the mall. You can see that there's a lot of parking space. You pay for it, but there's a lot of parking space. Lower rental costs, lower land values as compared to the CBD. Okay, that's basically what we are talking about. So that's 1.4.5. Let's move on to 1.5. Refer to the extract below of informal settlements. Informal settlements. So you need to know what an informal settlement. Mostly these are spontaneous settlements. They are not planned by the municipality. Obviously, they do not have all the services because they are illegal. They arise as a result of unemployment, because maybe there is expensive accommodation within the urban areas, and these people, they are unemployed or they are working, they are not getting a lot of money. As a result, they cannot afford to rent from the available expensive accommodation. So they just build their houses where there is vacant land. Floods cause destruction to informal settlements in eThekwini municipality. I'm going to read now. The recent flooding in eThekwini and surrounding areas has claimed hundreds of lives. So already you know these are some of the challenges that's associated with informal settlements. That's from the first paragraph. Families were displaced. Okay, families were displaced from informal settlement, worsening their housing problem. Many already face. There's already facing a housing problem, but due to floods, they've been replaced again. Where are they going to stay? Rapid urbanization and government failure. Rapid urbanization and government failure to deliver among the driving forces behind the increased number of informal settlement. So we are now saying that the reason why we have got the mushrooming of this informal settlement is because of rapid urbanization, which is caused maybe by people migrating from the rural to urban area because there are more opportunities within the urban area. Okay, but mostly that's what causes, okay? The unavailability of suitable land for housing is due to limited progress made with regard to land policies. Okay, remember we're talking about the land distribution, where we want the government maybe to acquire land so that they can actually give access to the people that were disadvantaged. So we are saying now, the moment those policies are delayed, then it becomes a challenge. This in return slowing down the ability of local governments to provide sufficient housing areas that are not prone to disasters like flooding. The result is that the quarter of South African urban population is living in informal settlements, built wherever people find open spaces that are prone to disasters. They lack basic amenities and infrastructure such as proper roads and storm water drainage systems. Many informal settlements are situated near water sources in low-lying areas, which increases the flood risk. So we can say now it's not out of choice that these people end up in informal settlements. But we are saying now most of them do not have access to land. Most of them do not afford to pay the exorbitant rental prices. So at the end of the day, they just find vacant land and build their shacks or houses because they're trying to make sure that they've got a roof over them. That's what it's all about. So the first question is, what is an informal settlement? What is an informal settlement? This is a concept. Make sure you define it correctly. Okay, that a settlement that has limited planning and infrastructure. Okay, there's no formal ownership of the land. Land is that it's occupied illegally or informal structure with different building materials. So normally we are talking that they are spontaneous settlement that are not known or registered by the municipality. You understand? That's what we are talking about. They are not formal settlement. Okay, a settlement that is limited planning and infrastructure. They are spontaneous settlement, which means unplanned. That's what it's all about. Which means they are not known by the municipality. They are illegal. These are what informal settlement are. Quote a reason from the extract. Quote a reason. Remember, guys, when you said quote a reason from the extract, you do not give your general answer. Check for the increase in the number of informal settlements in eThekwini. That is 1.5.2. We can see here there's rapid urbanization. There's rapid urbanization and government failure to deliver. Government failure to deliver adequate housing. So the question here, the answer is here from the extract. Government failure to deliver among the driving force adequate housing. These are the reason behind. So remember the question saying quote a reason from the extract, which means your answer is supposed to come from here. You're supposed to make sure that you get your answer from here, okay? So it means you have got your 1 mark there. Why are informal settlements in eThekwini at risk of flooding? That is 1.5.3. They are located near water sources or rivers. I think we have seen that from the, let me just look for it, okay? Let me just look for the answer. They are situated near water sources, or low-lying areas, which increases the flood risk. So guys, check. Already I've got how many marks? 2, 3, 4, 5. From the extract, I'm getting this from the extract, okay? Then how would the lack of proper roads negatively impact on the emergency services to reach the informal settlement in terms of disasters? We are saying, okay, they are informal settlements, they are not planned, they are not legal, but however, if disaster strikes, these people are supposed to be helped. But we are not saying now, the lack of proper roads, how do they negatively impact on the emergency services, the paramedics, people that want to help them to reach informal settlement in terms of the disaster like floods? What could be the problem? There is poor accessibility to informal settlement because the roads are not well serviced. So there is poor accessibility to informal settlement. It takes longer to reach the informal settlements in terms of emergence. That is the problem because the infrastructure is not properly managed. These are the negative. So poor accessibility of informal settlements. Then also it takes longer to reach the informal settlement in terms of emergence. Then the last one, in a paragraph of approximately 8 lines, suggest measures to prevent, okay, in a paragraph. Remember, when you're writing a paragraph question, do not write in point form. Make sure you write a paragraph. Suggest, okay, the measures to prevent flood-related disasters in informal settlements in the eThekwini municipality. When it comes now to the paragraph question, you're supposed to make sure that you give a fact and a qualifier, which means it's a well-explained point. It's a well-explained point that you're going to give. Okay, so we are looking at things such as informal settlements should be relocated to higher-lying areas. Obviously, where they are staying is close to the water sources, which means it's prone to floods. So we are saying now the informal settlements should be relocated to their higher lying areas so that when they are floods, they cannot be affected negatively. Okay, it's not going to affect people because they are on higher lying areas. That's basically what we are talking about. We are answering, okay, 1.5.5. Then there should be adequate services should be provided to informal settlements. You find that they lack basic services. So if all the adequate services are provided to the informal settlements, we are likely to to prevent flood-related disasters in informal settlements. Okay, so adequate service should be provided to informal settlements. That's another thing. An efficient drainage system should be installed as well, because drainage, it helps in also reducing the floods, okay, the negative effects of floods. It doesn't reduce floods, but the negative effects of floods, because it's an area is well drained, it's like we're likely to lessen the negative effects of floods, okay. Provide stronger building material, because some of the materials that they are using, they are not very strong. So as soon as there's a flood, they can easily washed away. So we are saying let's provide stronger building material. Then the other thing that we can also do is to provide low-cost housing that is affordable. If you provide low-cost housing, even if they are not going to own and rent, they will be able to afford. Then provide better infrastructure in the case that there is a disaster. Those emergency services can access the informal settlement. That's basically what we are talking about. You see the way I'm talking, I'm stating a point and explaining it in full. That's how you do effect and the qualifier. Access to better emergency services. So we are saying that if there's access to better emergency services in the case of a disaster striking, which means people will be able to be helped. I've explained the point in full. So make sure that whenever you are writing paragraph questions, you explain them fully. Okay, I'm going to say the points again. Informal settlements should be relocated to high-lying areas. Adequate houses should be provided to informal settlement. An efficient drainage system should be installed. Provide stronger building material. Provide low-cost housing. So these are some of the things that is supposed to be done in order to prevent flood-related disaster in informal settlements in the eThekwini municipality. So, in short, what I'm saying, guys, is when it comes to questions where you have got an extract or where you have got a source, guys, most of the question can come from the extract or from the source. You have got pointers, you have got clues. You should not struggle when it comes to answering questions, or you should not struggle when it comes to answering questions, because some of the answers are coming from the extract or from the source. So for today, I would say thank you. Go through the questions 1.4 and 1.5. Listen to the video, the lesson. Then if you have got any comments, please just comment on the comment section. You can also visit my YouTube and subscribe as well. I've got a channel, a YouTube channel, where I also post the same videos, so you can also subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much.